To Germany now, and the country saw a sharp rise in the number of anti-Semitic incidents last year. That's according to new data just published by the German government in its annual report. In 2024, more than 8,000 cases were registered. That's a 77% jump on the previous year. There's been a noticeable increase since the October 7th terror attacks on Israel by Hamas in 2023 and the war that followed. The report also concluded that anti-Semitism is widespread in Germany. Let's bring in DW reporter Sarah Hoffman for more. Welcome, Sarah. We're looking at roughly 24 anti-Semitic incidents a day in 2024. How do you explain this dramatic rise?
Well, yeah, Nicole, according to Rias, who published the report about anti-Semitic incidents in Germany, this is mainly due to two factors. One of them being the October 7th terror attacks on Israel that triggered a high number of incidents that Rias lists as anti-Semitic, for example, holding all Jews responsible for Israel's war in Gaza, threatening Jews to do the same to them as Hamas did to Israelis on that day. But they also say that the rise of right-wing extremism in Germany is the cause for a high number of anti-Semitic incidents. And more people do report anti-Semitic incidents. This is also part of why the numbers have risen. But there's also criticism that maybe we can have a look at as well.
Unfortunately, the incidents affect all areas of life. At university, for example, where graffiti and anti-Semitic stickers are distributed, demonstrations where the behavior of Israel is compared to that of the Nazis, women who are insulted as, and I quote, Jewish sluts, but also in everyday life, attributing collective responsibility of what is happening in the Gaza Strip to Jews, who are then suddenly expected to explain what is happening, even though they are German citizens.
Dann von Juden und Juden, die dann auf einmal sich erklären sollen, was da passiert, obwohl sie deutsche Staatsbürger sind.
Unfortunately, conspiracy narratives are always on the agenda, such as attributing of a certain power to a small group.
That was Felix Klein speaking to DW there. Sarah, the report concludes that anti-Semitism remains very much an everyday phenomenon for Jews in Germany. Do we know who's behind the incidents that have been recorded? Is it extremist groups? You mentioned far-right extremists there. Or does it seem in a way that anti-Semitism is becoming more mainstream in a sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, as you saw just, I did an interview with Felix Klein, the anti-Semitism reporter for the German government, and he works together with Rias, and they put an emphasis on what they call anti-Semitic incidents at demonstrations or protest camps, for example, at German universities. And why Felix Klein in the interview said that accusing Israel, for example, of committing genocide would not be counted as anti-Semitic incident. He also then said that if it relativizes, for example, the Holocaust, it would be counted as anti-Semitism. So you can see that there's also a lot of statements specifically at protests, at pro-Palestine protests, that are actually up to interpretation. And this is why I mentioned already earlier criticism of this report, because it uses the so-called IRA definition on anti-Semitism, which some say limits freedom of speech, especially at pro-Palestine camps or protests. And this is also why some say the numbers are so high. So you can see there's also dispute over where anti-Semitism starts.
How are Jewish communities in Germany responding to all of this?
Well, this is very clear that Jewish communities in Germany feel very insecure. They feel threatened no matter where they are. You heard what Felix Klein said, that this is really, there are anti-Semitic incidents, against Jews at many different places. So a lot of Jewish students report that they are being threatened at university, also at school. There are reports about children being harassed. So there's a general sense of anxiety and not feeling protected no matter where in the public space they are, even though there is a high police presence at Jewish institutions in Germany.
That's DW reporter Sarah Hoffman. Great to have you on the show. Thank you so much.